feel better with ourselves. So I think, at least in my country, the key is the media. And I think that all over, I mean, the West is now really full of activities of what is called the civil societies. And I really think that it's your duty or your right to raise your voice. And I want to say one more thing. I don't know about Canada, but in Europe it's very clear now that there is a big gap, a very mysterious one, between the public opinions and the governments. Governments in Europe today are much more favorable of the occupation of Israel than the public opinions. I don't know about your country, but in Europe it's for sure so. And I don't understand how does it work in democracies when the public opinion is in one place in quite an important issue. And the governments, government after government, state after state, in Europe at least, this gap should be overbridged and can be overbridged.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I really want to give everyone a chance to ask a question, and I want to respect everyone's time. So we're going to take 2 questions at a time. Mr. Levy will take notes. Ask your questions, please take your seat, and Mr. Levy will answer. Just to give a chance to everyone. Thank you.
It's now for 3 days that I'm begging this lady, don't call me Mr. Levy. So now, you didn't hear, in the opening she called me Dr. Levy already, when I have only my master's. So now, openly, please, enough, because she calls me Mr. Levy and I don't turn because I'm not sure it's me. So please. Yes, please.
Yeah, about the settlement freeze, or lack of settlement freeze. Yes. You read a lot in the papers here and also in Haaretz about it not really being Netanyahu's fault. He kind of wants to do it, but he has a minority government, and Yashamanim and the settler movement, Shahs, have him by the neck. Lieberman saying that there's never going to be peace, and maybe if you had a different foreign minister and a majority government, he'd be able to do something about it. What do you think about that? Is it true, or I mean, would Kadima be better? Thank you.
Gideon, is it not true that the narrative which allows the dehumanization of Palestinians and the displacement of Palestinians is that not the Zionist narrative? Is that not key to the whole national story of Israel? And if so, in a country where there are very few anti-Zionists, maybe none publicly, how does Israel address that? And you personally, how do you address that? Thanks.
First, about Netanyahu wants but can't. Again, first of all, leaders are about to lead, not to be led. But in Netanyahu's case, it's a whole lie. Because he has an alternative government if he wants. And Kadima will enable him to freeze the settlements. He just doesn't want. Many years there was not such a powerful prime minister like Netanyahu in terms of coalition. And this excuse is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. But I want to say also one word about Kadima. Don't have too many expectations. With the best microscope of this university, you will hardly find the differences between Labour, Kadima, and Likud in Israel. It's all about the rhetorics. We have Peace Nobel Prize winners like Shimon Peres who speak so nicely about peace and peace and peace, and is responsible to half of the settlement project. And we have Kadima with Tzipi Livni, who speaks so nicely, who is so beloved in the West, who is so nicely dressed, who would have met Abu Mazen week after week and talk to him with a nice way. And many times I prefer Lieberman on all those masks, because at least what you see is what you get.
Exactly.
About the Zionistic movement and the dehumanization, and I want to say, it's again introduction to a whole lecture, but I would like to say one thing, because we didn't mention the refugees tonight, we didn't mention 48. And it all starts there. If the Zionistic movement would have been responsible to what happened in 48, and ever since then had drawn the lesson, and would have changed, and changed its policy, and changed its ideology, one should forgive to what happened in 48, because things in wars happen, and atrocities happen, and the only thing is to find a way to compensate, etc. But it happens in wars. The problem is that nothing changed ever since then. Israel never took responsibility for 48, and Israel continued practically the same ideology. We never changed it. And therefore, what you say is totally right. It didn't start with 67, and it didn't start in the last years. It starts from the beginning, and I'm afraid that it never changed. And many times I'm asked if I'm Zionist, if I'm anti-Zionist, if I'm not Zionist. And the answer is very simple. It depends what you call Zionism. If Zionism is what it is today, not only I'm not a Zionist, I'm anti-Zionist. Yes.
I was in Jerusalem during the flotilla days, and my colleagues, the professors at Mount Scopus University, from where you can see very well, by the way, the wall, they were all horrified with the policy of Netanyahu. Now, my question is that the feeling of impotence among intellectuals, left progressive intellectuals, people who strive even practically for justice and peace, Hebrew intellectuals, Jewish intellectuals that strive every day in Jerusalem at least, and certainly in Tel Aviv and other places, the feeling of impotence amongst them is huge. And I wonder how you perceive, you're an intellectual of this kind, how do you perceive your own work in this situation, and if you see any perspective of, I know you're very pessimistic, and if you believe that on this impotence there is some negative role of the shade of Iran.
I wanted to thank you for your talk. I didn't find it discouraging at all, because often when someone speaks the truth, it's more heartening. But I was wondering if you had a sense of why it seems that here in the West, in North America at least, I can understand at some level certain Jewish people being pro-Israeli, because at some level it's mixed in with identity. But what I'm more confused about, and I was wondering if you had an insight into this, is why many non-Jewish people almost race to defend Israel. You talk about how in Israel there are problems with the media, but in the West, my brother always tells me, many left-wing Israeli media would be considered anti-Semitic in North America. And I was wondering if you had any insight into this. I mean, our most left-wing politicians will not recognize Hamas. And it's almost this race to do that. And I was wondering if you had any insight into that, to why that is. Thank you.
Yes, first of all, to the first gentleman, you were in Jerusalem when the flotilla happened, but what is more important, Netanyahu was here. And you could and should have done something about it. About what you call the impotence of the Israeli academia, here I can have some kind of optimism, because in the last year or so started a new wave of McCarthyism in the Israeli society, which touches the Israeli academia directly. There are really cracks in the democracy, even for the Jews, which anyhow is a very fragile one. And I can feel that the Israeli academia is now waking up, at least because it's going to touch the academia itself. So maybe this will bring some kind of wake-up call for the Israeli academia, who is impotent, sure, like many other institutions and agencies and checks and balances who are totally paralyzed and don't raise their voice, including the legal system and the intellectuals and some other, and the media obviously. And I didn't see the direct connection to Iran, but I can only say one thing. Iran shouldn't be if there would be rational thinking in Israel, should be the main incentive to try to get to peace with Syria and with the Palestinians. But we go the opposite route. We use Iran in order to postpone any agreement. This again goes against live ideology, it goes against any logic. You have Syria. With Syria we can get to peace within days. Syria is the ally of Iran. We want to weaken Iran, we want to weaken the influence of Iran in the Middle East. So what is more logic than trying to get to peace with Syria, who is really begging Israel for peace? The president of Syria in the last months, I mean, except of really licking the shoes of Netanyahu, he did anything possible to beg for peace. Israel totally ignores it. Doesn't even react, doesn't even bother to react. And he's the ally of Iran. So I can't see this rationale of not even trying. Let's say I'm dreaming and peace with Syria is impossible. Why not to try? So the danger is a danger. And I don't underestimate the danger of Iran. But the way to deal with it is first of all to do what can be done. Imagine yourself that there is peace with the Palestinians. What will Iran claim then? And peace with Syria. But as I said, I'm whistling in the darkness. Yes.
Gideon, if I can call you Gideon,
sure.
You can call me Jerry.
Okay.
I appreciated all your remarks, and they resonated with me particularly. I'm in concert with your general thinking about Israel. You were about to touch upon Israel, a democracy, and Israel, a Jewish state. You didn't go there, but I'm in tune with that dilemma. You took us into the psyche of Israeli people like I haven't heard before, and I appreciated that. I appreciated everything you said. There's one thing that bothers me, and I wonder if you would comment on it. You left the impression, and maybe you didn't mean to leave this impression, but you left the impression that the entire peace process and the failure of the peace process lay at the feet of the Israelis. And I didn't think that there was enough balance in discussing that issue, and I would appreciate some words about that.
Shalom, salam alaikum, salam. Several questions, if I can bring them all in. One about Hamas. Didn't Israel recruit Hamas to be a proxy force to fight Fatah? I can't remember if it was 20 years ago. Two, the nature of the tunnels that border Gaza, Egypt, are they still in process? Any smuggling, or are they just for goods? Three, the issue about phosphorus, has it been documented, the use of it by the IDF? And four, your relationship with Edward Said, the scholar who just passed away. Do you support most of his premises about Orientalism? Shukran.
Shukran. Thank you.
Dear Jerry, where is Jerry? Can I call you Jerry? I'm very grateful. Where are you, Jerry?
Here.
Sorry. I'm very grateful for your question. Look, first of all, let's remember there is no symmetry. There's the occupier and there's the one who is occupied. There's the people who lives in a sovereign state and the people who lives without any human rights. So before we start to criticizing the Palestinians and their mistakes, and they have big mistakes and a lot of mistakes, we have to come to the table with clean hands.
Global Broadcast News.